Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions regarding this watch. And this watch is one of the coolest I have ever encountered. A special piece launched to celebrate 140 years of Breitling. This is a 2024 launch from the Navitimer collection. It is called the Navitimer B19 Chronograph 43 Perpetual calendar. And yes, it is a full perpetual. It is not the old Breitling 1461. This one can wind all the way around the 4-year cycle and back to the beginning. It is a fantastic watch that is full of the technical features that watch nerds love. So Breitling has truly come back to the realm of mechanical ingenuity where you buy them not just for the history and the way they look, but for the movements inside. So 43 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. I measure it 15 millimeters thick. It is 48.9 from lug tip to lug tip, though if we include the end links of the bracelet, it's a little bit broader across the wrist, 50.2 millimeters. Now, I would describe this as a 22 millimeter lug spacing. Breitling, which is all of a sudden acting awfully German, describes it as 22.05. They are, after all, based in Grenchen these days. So the watch features a 22.05 millimeter lug spacing. Guys, it's 22 millimeters. Now we have the Navitimer bracelet. A lot of people mistake it for the Pilot bracelet, but the Navitimer is a 7-link. The Pilot is a 5-link. It's a lovely and graceful bracelet. It has a semi-conforming end link to mate it to the case. There is a little bit of taper down as we move toward the clasp, alternating brushed and satin elements. You can see we've got removable links, and they are fixed by screws. We've also got a couple of intermediate-sized links. So you can see these half-size links. It even says on the bottom, let's get that there, short and short. See that right there? So that's how you fine-tune the fit if you find yourself in between sizes with the primary links. Also note there are a lot of removable links here. Breitling clasps are getting better and better. You can see this design, it's a double fold. It is a sequential close, so one side closes before the other. The Breitling B, now bereft of wings. Breitling wants you to know they're more than just pilot's watches these days. Land, sea, and air sports. And then you've got this lovely grooved Breitling logo plate. It's really impressive with the twin trigger action, ensuring it can't pop open by accident. You have to press both triggers at once. Also, this is an area where a lot of companies will give you a generic piece purchased from a supplier. So Breitling, with a bespoke clasp internal, I'm not saying they're making this themselves, but I am saying it doesn't look like, for example, what you get on an IWC Ingenieur. It is a lovely bracelet, and it's a very comfortable one. We'll throw it on my wrist now. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, and so this wears nicely. Georges Kern has delivered on his promise for shorter lugs on watches, even when they're large watches like this. And on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, this wears just fine. In fact, if your wrist is even just a little bit smaller, look at the lugs not quite reaching out over the edge of my wrist. And even the over-the-top shot, which tends to exaggerate the width of the watch, the further away you get, the better this looks. I think you could wear this on a 15 centimeter circumference wrist. And although it's not thin, you can see it does have a cupped case back and it nestles down. It sits lower than its nominal thickness when it's on the wrist. So the case is simple, and like a lot of watches that are either vintage re-edition, or vintage inspired, it has minimally beveled, squared-off lugs and a thin case band. And so we do have a lot of those features that hark back to the early 1950s Breitling Navitimers. There is some dispute about whether the first Navitimer was 1952, as Breitling claims, or somewhat later, like 54 or 55. I'm not going to opine on that, just that this case design is fairly faithful while still being a modern watch. We do have some little dimple-style pusher adjusters, because this is a perpetual calendar. We do have some crown-setting functions, though, which I'll detail. The bezel should be well known to Navitimer fans. Actually, this was not the first calculator bezel on a Breitling watch. That was the Chronomat in the early 40s, but the Navitimer was a more comprehensible and comprehensive circular slide rule. So if you wanted to calculate something specific, notice calibrations like nautical and statute miles, kilometers per hour. It was a lot easier to calculate rates with this. Rate of climb, descent, drift, ground speed, airspeed, fuel consumption. It's a lot easier. Those of you who know slide rules well will realize there are some scales that are not featured here. It is primarily for multiplication and division, and it's easy to use. So taking a look at the outer bezel, let's work from the outside in. You can see that the outer bezel knurling is polished, but then the recesses are media blasted. Nice attention to detail. Look at that dramatically double curved cambered sapphire. There's two different cambers. You can see how it flattens out across the top, but it's kind of dramatic and bubbly on the side. That's designed to evoke vintage plexiglass, and it does give you a little bit of that off-axis plexiglass-like distortion. Let's talk about how you use this calculator real quick. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but some of you might wonder. So let's say, for example, I want to divide 9 by 3. This is where you have to keep mental decimals because it won't tell you for sure whether you're dividing 90 by 30 or 9 by 3 or 90 by 3. So you see, it's like a fraction. You put 90, the number to be divided, over the number dividing it. So that's 90 divided by 30. And so rolling around to the index, 90 divided by 30 is 3. Again, you got to keep those mental decimals in mind. So let's say 35 now times 2. Okay, so 35 times 2, it's the opposite. I'm going to put 35 over the index, which is that little 10 on the inner scale. Now I'm going to go find 2. And you can see right here, right over 2, 35 times 2, there you go, 70 on the outer scale. Easy to do. A lot of fun. The more familiar you are with it, the easier it will be to calculate tips at the restaurant and beat your friends with their smartphones. One thing that needs to be mentioned about this bezel, while the steel of the case and the steel of the bracelet are self-evident, this is actually platinum. So this is precious metal platinum, and it is ultra white and ultra dense, and it adds an air of luxury to this watch. In fact, Breitling is moving in the Rolex direction of using this ice blue dial to suggest that at least part of the watch is platinum. So on recent production Breitlings, when you see this dial, you definitely want to think platinum or at least partly platinum. So this is a steel and platinum watch. Now we have a combination of black, blue, white, and then this ice blue center. You can see we have a perpetual calendar. So we've got the day, we've got the date, we've got the month and the leap year, and then we have this lovely little moon phase that includes metallized deposits on a glowing moon with the cosmos twinkling in the background. I mentioned earlier there are some crown setting functions here, so let's talk about those. We have little dimple correctors for some of the calendar functions, but you can see right here I've now activated stop seconds, so I've halted the movement. But in the intermediate position, I have the ability to operate a quick set. So what's happening here, look at the moon phase, look at the day, and look at the date. And now look at the month. See that? All of that advances in sync. So there is a quick set for the entire perpetual calendar. So if it falls 4 days behind, let's say it stops for 4 days, wind it up, set the time, and then advance 4 clicks. And it's just like setting a watch with 3 hands and a date. Super simple. The chronograph, still based on the bones of the B01 from Once Upon a Time. You can see it's got a vertical clutch engagement because there's no jump to the seconds hand when I start it up. Also, because of the vertical clutch, there's no additional wear and tear on the watch when the chronograph's running. So if you just want to leave the chrono going, there's no hazard to the watch. It's not going to run down. We also have, and by that I mean you're not going to advance your service interval. You can leave the chrono running without hazard. We also have a column wheel. And every variant of the B01 and its derivatives, some of the best column wheel feel and action and sound I've experienced. And although the B01 architecture was not originally designed for display casebacks when it first debuted on the Chronomat in 2009, it's a big movement and it looks good, so I'm glad to see it. Here it is, automatic winding, now with a 96-hour power reserve, no longer the previous 70, so it's got longer legs. Still a 4 Hz beat rate, it's got 39 joules now, and if we flip everything, you can see that the regulator has been given a makeover. No longer a combination of an eccentric screw and Edicron, now it is a free-sprung oscillator, which allows for precise 5-position adjustment, greater shock resistance, and of course the movement is a COSC certified Swiss chronometer, so it has that going for it too. The watch is water resistant to 30 meters, so traditional pilot's watch, you don't want to take it swimming, but if it gets splashed or something, you'll be all right. Dial side, beautiful, but also well loomed. As you can see, in the dark, it's possible to read this watch quite distinctly. This is one of the most exciting and appealing watches I've seen from Breitling in years. It's one of the few that I really look at and think, I would love to own that. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.